Can I read you a quote that I'm reading right now of a book that, Scott, maybe you've heard of this book. It's called Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
Viktor Frankl.
Yeah, Viktor Frankl and
Yeah.
Man's Ultimate Search for Meaning. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
um, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it or not. I was reading yeah, here it is.
Yeah, he was a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna find it, but he basically goes through that, his whole point in the premise that I've gotten so far too. I'm only on, like, page 30, but, like, you don't know you can't control what life throws at you, no matter how evil or horrible it gets, but, they can take away everything from you, but they can't take away how you react to situations.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very powerful thing going through life that kind of what you're describing, right? Is only you have that's the only thing you truly have is how you react to certain things. Everything else is gone in the wind. And so
Yeah, and
something I'm trying to embrace in my life too is just,
yeah,
whatever happens, is going to happen. And,
yeah, and we're all professional aviators, man. I mean, not to sound egotistical, but I mean, we're just cut from a different cloth, man.
yeah,
Like a lot of people, 99.9% of the population doesn't understand what it's like to fly an airplane, be like an octopus, doing this, doing that, task switching. Like, they just don't understand. And at the same time, it's like it's a very unique career in so many different ways, but specific is, how do I say this? Just the way my mind works, I don't know if you guys think like this, but like there's been numerous times throughout my like 19-year career where I've been like, I mean, probably 50, 60, 70, maybe 100 times where I've been like, man, what if I don't come back from this flight?
mm,
What if something happens, and
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had any friends that have died, but like I've rubbed shoulders with people that aren't around anymore, and that's just like, it's just, I always kind of tend to think about like how that sort of develops our minds and our brains, because I mean, nobody thinks about that shit, man, when they go to work. Like, man, I don't know, what if I'm not going to come back today? And
yeah,
so, but anyways, but it's just, yeah, having that. But you know what, to piggyback off of that, man, a person that who's been like a huge inspiration for me is like my dad.
mm,
He grew up, I mean, like dirt poor, man, like abject poverty. Like my grandfather on that side of the family was a migrant farmer. He was like first generation from the Philippines. And my grandmother on that side, because they grew up, how do I say this? They were so poor, and my dad was the firstborn, like they would tell stories about when they had to go out, like who would get the t-shirt.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's how poor
It's
they were.
crazy.
And then I'll make this quick. And then when my dad is the oldest of all of like seven brothers and sisters. I think when my dad was about like 6 or 7 years old, my grandmother on that side came down with like schizophrenia. And so my dad basically had kind of raised like the whole family. But anyways, my dad ended up kind of being like this classical success story. He was a great athlete, ended up going to UCLA on a full scholarship, really made something out of his life. And then my dad was like an investment banker for his entire career. And so he's a
Pretty
finance.
incredible.
Yeah, he has a finance degree from UCLA. But I saw him throughout my life, like go like having everything and then like losing during like during economic downturns. And one thing that was really interesting about him, a couple different things, and I could never figure this out for the longest time. No matter what happened, he always remained like stoic. His
Yeah.
vibe never changed. And it wasn't until I was probably like 26 or 27 years old that I realized his mentality was like, as long as he never had to go back to what he experienced as a kid, he was good.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Autopilot on podcast. We've got another great episode with you. We got John, co-host, here today with me, and Vince is back by popular
What's up,
demand.
man?
Oh, I don't know about that, man, but thanks.
He's an OG guest. He's an OG guest when I was still at my in my bathroom.
Yeah. It's funny because I watched the first episode and I'm like, is he sitting on the toilet?
Yeah, he was.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do with the toddler in the house and no setup and
Yeah. It would have been cool to
anyways.
flush the toilet at some point, man. That would have been cool.
Oh, well, that's funny.
That's
Well,
awesome.
I'm back in the Big Apple again. Like just like last episode, I got 28 hours here, and today was a pretty good day. But I just want to say thank you to everyone for your support. We've started to see some real traction with the show. We're about to, by the time this episode releases, we're at over 1,000 followers on Instagram, and we're
Nice.
seeing some really good traction on the viewership on across all platforms, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. And one thing I really want to say is just thank you to everyone for being able to listen. Like, we spent a lot of time trying to develop some good content for the industry and then for the general public as well. But we'd also really appreciate it if you could go on, if you listen, to be able to go on and either rate us on Apple Podcasts, give us your review. If you want something changed, let us know. And we're very easily adaptable in terms of taking good criticism. And then same with Spotify, that really helps us too. If you could rate us and follow us, and then on YouTube, just give us a subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'm not gonna say anything else about this, for a long time at least, maybe till next episode or whatever. But we really appreciate it, and we're going to continue to grow and develop our content that gives you guys just another voice. I mean, Scott and I talked about it yesterday about, whether you're on a commute and you just don't want to feel like you're alone for, 6 hours, having someone else there and be able to hear us in our conversations. Hopefully we make a difference within your life, whether it's entertainment or you find some nugget of wisdom that we have for whatever reason. So I'll get off my soapbox there, but we're really stoked to have you, Vince. And
Thank you.
Scott, what are we going to talk about today?
Can I interject just for a second?
Yes.
I think it's really awesome what you guys are doing, man. I can't speak for your aviation careers, but when I started out, like it was just me. I had to figure it all out on my own, and sort of this perception I had of aviation and the real reality are like they're completely diametrically opposed. Like that said, I
Yeah.
think it's really cool because it's like what I perceive the direction of this podcast, or maybe to say the heart of the podcast, is you guys are giving the insider view, to aviation, and hopefully people will watch this and they'll see even in like as professionals and anywhere in life, but specific to this like profession, it's like, we kind of have to dance around topics a little bit,
Yeah, as we will today.
like what can we say, what can't we say, what's going to get us in trouble, what's
Yeah.
not going to get us in trouble. And it's unfortunate, but at least it gives it's a platform for a realistic depiction, at least into some of the ins and outs of this industry. You need to have a really high social IQ anywhere in life, but especially here, man, especially in aviation, man. You got to be one part psychology. I say, and I'll shut up in a second, but I say three things make a good pilot, right? Or a good aviator. Let's say you have to be one part nerd because you have to continue to study and update your education. You have to be one part psychiatrist because you have to be able to read yourself, read other people, profile people and stuff like that. And then you need to be one part fighter because there's going to be a time where your airplane is not agreeing with you and you're probably going to have to wrestle it to the ground or fight with it a little bit, and you're in a fight for your life. So anyways, that said, man, I think it's really awesome what you guys are doing, man. Keep pressing along, and hopefully people are watching, especially people getting into the industry, and it gives them a little bit more of a realistic depiction of like sort of the inside game.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you
Yeah.
saying that.
Well, your timing's perfect because I'm really happy you were able to come on today. So today's September 23rd, 2025. And we talked, John and I, and we felt that this was the appropriate time to have this conversation. And I'm glad Vince was able to join because I know he's very passionate about this. Given the recent events in the United States in the past week and a half, it's important that we have a discussion and review what it means to be a professional aviator and how to uphold those standards. Anybody functioning at the professional aviator level, especially on a turbojet aircraft, has to hold an ATP certificate. One of the most overlooked lines in the requirements for the ATP certificate is Part 61-153 Charlie. And it's, quote, be of good moral character, end quote.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the first requirement, right?
It's C. So that's the first requirement outside of, I believe, like your times,
Okay.
the required times.
A is the following age, and then go subsection of that kind of stuff. B is being able to
Okay.
read, speak, and
Mhm.
understand English. And then C is be of good moral character.
Yeah, but basically it's the tip of the spear that
Yeah.
that heads everything. But I'm sorry,
Yeah.
continue.
Right. You're good. it's a good time to have the conversation to remind ourselves what that means. Taking it a step further, I'm going to read a couple things. I'll make them quick. I'm just going to read the headers. So, the Airline Pilots Association (ALPA) has a code of ethics, which I think's probably more commonly overlooked than we want it to be. But there's 5 points in that need to be read. And the first one is an airline pilot will keep the uppermost in their mindset that the safety, comfort, and well-being of passengers who entrust their lives to them are the pilot's first and greatest responsibility. The second bullet point, an airline pilot will faithfully discharge the duty they owe the airline which employs them and whose salary makes possible their way of life. Number three, and currently the most important given what's happening, an airline pilot will accept the responsibilities as well as the rewards of command and will at all times so conduct themselves both on duty and off as to
Mhm.
instill and merit the confidence and respect of their crew, their fellow employees, and their associates within the profession. Point four, an airline pilot will conduct their affairs with other members of the profession and with ALPA in such a manner as to bring credit to the profession and ALPA as well as to themselves. And the last point, to an airline pilot, the honor of their profession is dear, and they will remember that their own character and conduct reflect honor or dishonor upon the profession. So these things are very relevant right now. Consider what's going on, and we thought this would be a good time to have a discussion on these things and reminding ourselves what they really mean to us, to the general public, and to the industry. Yeah,
Wow, we just
yeah, Vince, go ahead, take it away, buddy.
where do I start with this, man, without over talking it? I think that these are great foundational principles. I feel that in the current state of our society with how polarized we are, is it even really feasible for us to carry these out? You know what I mean? I mean, on an individualistic level, yeah, but we're not really individuals, you know? If I want to be good to somebody else and they reciprocate something bad to me or some type of negative behavior, I guess our propensity as human beings is to reflect that back to them. So, does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I do think that's a sinister way of thinking about it.
For sure, for sure. It's
I
definitely
believe
jaded.
in the greater good of the industry and my coworkers that I fly with. Very rarely, we've all seen the news of the things going on and the reactions to that news going on. And there's been quite a few pilots caught in I'm not going to say caught in in the way because they've done it themselves individually and they've chosen the words that they chose
Yeah,
and they've landed them in those situations. But what I do think is we as a community and a society of aviators, I think that sometimes we forget what level of responsibility we have to the public and to our passengers and what kind of when we put on that uniform, what people see, not only just as an individual, but what the uniform, what the epaulets, and what that actually means to the general public.
right.
And so when they see us, they wanna see someone of sound, good moral judgment,
Of
right?
course.
Because I kind of compare it to, with my son, he's 1.5. I don't want him we don't have anyone to babysit him, but man, I've never had anyone babysit him outside of my parents or my or my wife's parents. If you were to show me, some crazy person's tweets or opinions before dropping off my son, what do you think would that instill, good moral judgment that I would feel safe enough to leave my child, my little toddler, in their hands of someone like that?
Right, right,
That's genuinely, that's the same kind of, comparison I can make towards how the general public sees us.
right,
When they see you go up to the gate or coming from a meeting on, the tarmac or the apron, who do they see in front of them?
right,
Because they are in the end of the day, they are instilling their life into your hands and your decisions around that. And what I think is that we are so caught up in today's culture and one side has to be correct over the other, that we forget about what morality is in terms of and what standard we have to hold,
Right. Right.
regardless of what your political view is, right?
Right. Right.
And I just believe that we can do better and we have to stop going so fast.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Life passes us by so quickly, in my opinion. And sometimes you forget and you step away from the situation, be like, okay, and you look yourself in the mirror and say, am I being an upstanding person that people look up to me or people look up to my uniform and aligns with the view that they hold,
Right.
general
Right.
public's view.
Right.
And I think that we can do better. I don't think it's a sense of, yeah, there's always going to be one offs, right? And for the most part, we have hundreds of thousands of professional aviators. How many people are getting fired or put on leave? A microscopic amount.
Yeah.
But that microscopic amount is being elevated by social media and by everything, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's a great time to stop and realize, okay, what do we want to define this profession as? This beautiful profession of being a professional aviator, and what do we want to be remembered by? The people, the micro percentile, and can we go against that and disprove those different people of making those horrendous statements?
Right.
So
Right. Right. Right.
I do understand what you're saying, but I do believe that we can do better, and, I think people just need to step back and really think about the words that they use and realizing that we don't have to be so divisive, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even if
Yeah.
you think those things, you don't need to say those things into public, and remember, remember the responsibility you have and the weight your words carry with the job that you have. Just like if you're a religious person and you're outwardly religious, people will judge you far worse than if you are um, a very low level entry employee making minimum wage without a platform. And I'm just being honest, right? Those people, their opinions, everything is completely individual, right? But when you hold a job that carries 240 people, 500 people, and A380, yeah, dude, your words do matter more than most.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
careful what your words are. I'm gonna I don't wanna ramble either. I'm gonna let you guys interject on kind of what I said and what your opinions are.
So let me just to clarify, like I'm optimistic about the future, man. I see a lot of negativity out in the world. Not that I'm not like looking for it. I just see a lot of negativity out in the world. It's just, but going back to like, the principles that you outlined, it's like for me, my mind kind of makes a beeline to one, how do I say it? One big problem I see in our society, which is like we've kind of lost our way in terms of like our cultural values. If you say I don't like the word culture, but within the context of I'm more of like a human beings are human beings, but I'll just use the word generically here,
It's fine.
culture. It's like, our culture as Americans, let's just say American culture because we're all American here. We have a written and unwritten code of like how we operate in our value systems that we all agree on. And I'll use this is going to be kind of a random example, but this is just kind of how I talk. It's like I watch this YouTube channel called the Law and Crime Network. Have you heard of it?
No.
So I've been following it now for about 8 months. Every week, every single week, there's a new story about a female junior high school teacher who's assaulting kids. And so while we have all these principles and everything, obviously we know that that's not right. For the life of me, I cannot wrap my head around this. And maybe that's a good thing that I can't wrap my head around it. But for me, I guess within the context of what we're talking about, like what I come back to is like, have we really lost our way that much? You know what I mean? I mean, yes, we have all these fundamental principles, but we're like we're not really tied to them as you know what I mean. We're not unified under those principles. You come from a
We're
different back.
fragmented, if that
Thank you.
makes sense. It's
We're
going in
frag.
the opposite direction
Mm.
where one side or the other, and again, I don't wanna get political. It's just this is
Yeah, yeah.
legitimate truth and what people are seeing, and it's correct. I don't mean to cut you off, Vince, but it's
No, you
just
think of now.
instead of having a cohesive blend of this is what we all believe as a country, as a people, it's one side against the other now, and you have to pick a side now. That's what you're being forced into, and as an ideology of one way or another, you can't think freely and be okay to speak freely.
Right, right.
Pick a side.
I like again going back to this teacher example. It's just like at what point did we become divorced? Not all of us, but did a notable percentage of the population, at least like in this profession, become divorced from the fact that we don't harm the most vulnerable parts of the population, you know? Or here's a better question. I have to think and talk at the same time. It's like, you know, we all come from like vastly different backgrounds, right? But at the end of the day, man, we're 98% similar. I mean, you're a dad, I'm a dad. At the end of the day, man, like we want to, you know, be able to provide for ourselves, buy homes, you know, like those core sort of, I don't want to call them values, but those core goals, whatever you want to call them. It's not the right word I'm looking for, but you get what I'm
Yes.
saying. But those core drivers are still there. I want to pay as little taxes as possible. I want to make as much money as I can and keep as much of that money as I can. You know, I want to be good to people around me. I want people to be good back to me. And it's just, I don't know, man. It's like, but I do agree. Yeah, yes, we can do things better. It just seems like I have this saying, man. Really, it's more of a conviction. It seems like it's really, really hard to be a good person in today's society.
Yeah.
It's really challenging, and it shouldn't be. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be challenging, you know, it shouldn't I should just be able to go down the road and, you know, oops, I got into somebody's lane a little bit and just like, hey man, my bad, you know, but instead it's just like, wow, you know, throwing up the middle finger and stuff like that. And, you know, or like I said, the car situation I'm dealing with, I have a contract with this company for full mechanical repairs. And then here they are trying to do all this funny stuff. And, you know, they're obviously not going to cover the policy, or honor the policy. And it's hard, man. I'm not saying it's a challenge that we shouldn't take on. I'm just saying I don't really know what I'm saying. It's challenging, man. It's really, really challenging to be a person of good moral character. You know, like I'm the type of guy, man. I don't take shit from people, man. And I've been like that my entire life. You know, I came up playing sports, and I think I said this in the last podcast. It's like I'm used to getting knocked down and wanting to get up with a vengeance. You know, throw two at me, I'm gonna throw six back at you. And that works on the sports field, it doesn't work in life, you know what I mean? Without getting you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm way kind of all over the place with this, but
No,
I'll let you go
I get
first.
what you're saying. It's just a matter of it's an extremely difficult thing to uphold yourself to, and it seems that that challenge is not really resonating necessarily or being thought of, until hopefully we're bringing it up and we can make a difference and really challenge our other aviators within the community to look yourself in the mirror and kind of internally show some thought into yourself on, am I acting in the best way possible to uphold my profession and make others proud of the aviator community? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So,
yeah,
um, and I think that a lot of people don't think about that in their decision making. They just think about internally what their beliefs are, and they, you know, people aren't perfect, but I think that we can do better. Scott, what do you think, man?
I got a couple thoughts. So, out of everything, that you guys just said, I can't remember if you said the book you were reading before or after we started, but John, you're reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, I just started
And
it. It's already profounding.
it's a very profounding book. And in that, one of the big takeaways he writes about is, you can't control what other people are going to do, but you can control your reaction to that. And that ties directly into what we're talking about today, maintaining your composure and how you're going to react in that face of negativity. Because the reality is, people are going to be people. I learned this in my first career, 10 years in emergency medical services. Talk about keeping your composure when somebody's family member is dying and you're struggling to save their life and the family members are all there. The natural reaction is anger and panic, and they yell at you and scream at you, and you have to maintain your composure and continue focusing on trying to save this person's life while you're getting yelled at. And you can't yell back at them. Um, that's
right,
the responsibility of wearing the uniform. That exact same thing applies in the pilot world. So,
right,
if you have an angry passenger who's yelling at you or saying your airline sucks or you're terrible, you have to just be the bigger person. It's hard. It's sometimes very hard to do, but that is the responsibility that you take when you accept that command or put the uniform on.
I think it's easier for us to be morally sound with the uniform on than off. And the reason why I say that is because we forget that the profession and the standards that we are upheld to are not just with the uniform on, but it's everywhere else in our life.
Yeah.
And so this is where it's getting people into trouble that they think
Mm.
that can separate the uniform and the rest of their other part of their life. And what they're figuring out is that your actions have consequences to not only your personal life, but also to your professional life as well.
How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Mm.
Exactly. Think that we as a community need to realize that your words have meaning and people judge you, the words that you use, on how you do everything else in your life. It is a holistic view people have. They do not separate you from your uniform.
Right. And they shouldn't. Right.
Yeah, because that's how, I mean, there really shouldn't
That's
be
what
any difference.
yeah. I think that's what
And
the
so that's
being of good moral character is about.
Yeah, before I forget, John, I have a good book for you, man, that you'll really enjoy.
where
I probably read it like 10 years ago. It's called Dignity, Its Essential Role in Conflict Resolution. Great book, man. Great book.
cool, man. I'll check
Yeah,
it out.
yeah. Check it out, man. It changed my perspective a lot on like confrontation with people and stuff like that, and sort of the inside game on confrontation. But anyways,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. It's a tough. Your initial question was very tough for me, man, because I'm coming from a I immediately beeline to like the lack of social cohesion, lack of culture, lack of social cohesion. And again, like I don't want to use that as an excuse to not like chase the good or go after the good or be a person of good moral character. But man, it's really hard, it's really hard to be nice to somebody who's, like you say, in your face, yelling and this and that and keep your composure. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's why we do what we do, man. You know?
Yeah, and just going back to the Alpha Code of Conduct, I think this part is really specific as well to what you pointed out was to an airline pilot, the honor of their profession is dear, and they will remember that their own character and conduct reflect honor or dishonor upon their profession. And it goes on to say they will be a good citizen for their country, state, and community, taking an active part of their affairs, especially those dealing with the improvement of aviation facilities and enhance of air safety. But I think the most important part in that is what does being a good citizen look like? And that's a whole different sector, but you know, I think in the end of the day, it just boils down to what kind of person are you outside of the break is released? And that's something that I personally, going into work, Scott, last night after the conversation, I showed up to the airplane and the plane was the inbound plane was there for about 30 minutes already. Everyone else is outside of um, everyone's deplaned. I have a group of 3 mothers all waiting for their, their s their strollers, right? They've been waiting for 30 minutes since the airplane got there. Everyone's been gone. They don't have a belt loader downstairs. And so, times, and I wanna preface this with saying that, yes, we are pilots, that we are, our job is actual to fly an airplane, and, the correct answer, I guess you could say, is we find the correct person that they can talk to fix the situation.
Right.
Sometimes that's not always the best case, and I felt that, "Alright, what does a moral person do here?" I could personally, if I wanted to, just go into the flight deck and say, "Hey, I don't know, you're gonna have to ask the gate agent." But the gate agent had no answers for her. So what am I gonna do in this case? Because at the end of the day, I have a choice I can make of either calling the operation at the airport in terms of my company, or I could do nothing. So I chose to call the operation and see, hey, can you and talk to all these other people and try to coordinate because I felt called upon myself that if I'm gonna be talking about what it means to be a moral person, I better be able to live that out myself
For sure. 100%. Yeah.
in uniform. And so it's really easy to say, carrying someone up in a wheelchair, those are gimme options about being a moral person. But what do you do when no one else is looking and you have an opportunity to be not be a moral person?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do you, if you're listening and a pilot or just an average citizen, think about this and think, who do I want myself to be? Do I want people to look up to me in decisions that I make and they know that I'm a sound moral person, that when no one's looking and hiding behind a username that's on Reddit or on whatever platform,
Yeah.
I am posting good and sound things that uphold the profession or
Right.
uphold my moral values.
Right. Right. Right.
So that's my personal view. I don't know if that's the correct take or not, but
No, I think it is, man. I think like we just kind of need to clear everything off the table and get back to like first principles, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Your job, our job, or whatever is to fly an airplane. But realistically, man, like our job is to be in service of other people, you know, and not just as pilots, but just like in general, man. You know, our job is ultimately to be in service of other people, man. And so whether you know you have a uniform with 3 or 4 epaulets on or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like we again, first principles, man. We have to like always maintain first principles, and that's I don't think that it's a hard thing to do, but I think it's definitely more challenging with all the external noise we have in our current society. You know, it also requires people to be intelligent, man. Not even intelligent, just to have some common sense. You know, just have some common sense, man. All this stuff that's going on, like with people getting assassinated or this or that, and it's like, what is it? Just all this like ideologically driven stuff. It's like we're better than that, man. You know, we're better than that, and we're smarter than that. We have the potential to be better and smarter than that. Why would we want to be anything less? You know, and I'm not talking about like you have to be some like immaculately like intelligent person or insanely intelligent person. It's just like first principles, man. Have common sense, and I think what you did was the common sense thing to do. Technically, you're off. If I understood the story correct, you know, you could just walk out and head to your hotel, have a couple drinks, but you decided to say, hey, you know what? Going back to like this, what I was talking to you about with this book, you know, acknowledging someone else's dignity.
Yeah.
You know, just be like, hey, you know what? You see the people are in need. You have the common sense, the situational awareness of what's going on. There's nobody else here. These people have been waiting for 30 minutes. You know, I can make an impact here. That's good moral judgment right there. It's not even moral judgment. It's a heavy word. It's just common sense, you know?
I think I have a really well-rounded way of kind of encapsulating what you said. It's not necessarily morality or being a good moral person is a difficult thing, but it's a conscious decision that you have to make,
Right.
and that you will kind of have you will have all those different decisions to make with the uniform on or off in your life, and you consciously have to make a decision on what you're going to do in those situations. Do you care or
Yeah.
do you not care?
Yeah.
And so I hope that people can reflect on those decisions they've made in the past. And I'm not trying to judge anyone at all because I've made unjust decisions as well. Everyone has.
All of us have, yeah.
The point is looking at it, how can we strive to be better as, as individuals, as husbands, fathers, but most importantly in the context of this show is professional aviators.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hope I can leave people with that today of how do you want your decisions to be remembered, and how
Yeah.
do you want people to think of you when they talk, with you not in the room?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that says a lot
Yeah,
of people.
two stories for you, man. It was like 3 days ago. I was at the grocery store. I pulled up in the parking lot right next to this car, and this girl's like got her window down, and she's literally sitting there like this, right? So I just kind of looked over, and you know, I got out of the car. I was like, "Excuse me," and she's like, "Yeah." What? She's just bawling her eyes out. I said, "Are you okay?" "Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm okay." I said, "No, no, are you really okay? I'm not trying to get into your business or anything like that, but like, are you sure you're all right?" "Yeah, yeah." So what? Can I ask what's going on? Relationship problems, this, and that. Just again, as an example, man, of just like, being aware of like, I mean, we're all in this fight together, man, and it is a fight, and it's more like a brawl these days, but just being aware, man. Another thing that like I've experienced in the last like 4 years, man, I had 3 friends that contacted me, man, and wanted to kill themselves. It was really interesting because I stopped what I was doing. One was like when I was, where was I? I was out in Texas and I was on like a 20-minute call to get in the airplane, and the other pilot, I was on shift, but the other pilot happened to walk by, and I was like, hey, yo, yo. And I flagged down the other pilot, and he walked by in like shorts. I'm like, hey man, I got a situation here. Can you take these next 2-3 flights or whatever? And he was cool with it. I just kind of explained to him real quick what was going on. But somewhere along the lines of the conversation, the first thing I do in these situations is just listen to people. What's going on? Let me listen to you. But somewhere along the line in the conversation, later in the conversation, I said, let me ask a question just for my own curiosity. Why did you decide to call me? You can call me anytime, call me anytime, message me or whatever. Both of them said, or two of them said, because I knew you wouldn't bullshit me. I knew you would be honest with me and tell me the truth. And I was just like, okay, interesting. So I guess that's an example, a long-winded example of my way of, I guess, trying to be a person of good moral character, just being honest with people, just like, hey man, this is what's going on, and it's a lot easier with some people than it is other people. For me, it's a relatively easy thing with the people around me because I have a pretty tight inner circle, and so the people I'm around are relatively like-minded in the sense that like we don't have problems with being challenged, especially our assumptions, our perceptions, and stuff like that. So, anyways, that's that, man.
Oh, it's a great story, man. I think it ties beautifully to what we're talking.
It's an unfortunate story, man. It's just, and we could probably segue in another episode about the mental health crisis that, like, not just our society, but worldwide, man. People are in worldwide. So, but
Yeah.
anyways,
It seems like we're at a point. This everything that's going on has kind of brought us to a point in society of how are we going to react to it, right? It seems like
yeah,
there's two ways you can go. We could and we could take the the high road, try to be better people because of what's happening, or we can devolve into war and craziness. I think we're gonna take the high road. I hope so. It seems like we are. But that's what we're talking about today. That's why we have this conversation in this podcast is to have these open, real
right,
dialogues. Obviously we have to be careful not to put our jobs in jeopardy,
right, right,
but which is why we're kind of tiptoeing around certain things. However, they're important discussions to have, which do relate back to what we're talking about being of good moral character and the expectations that the general public and society have on us as professional aviators. Vince has something he says all the time that there's a difference between a pilot and an aviator,
Yeah,
and this is a prime example of that. An aviator, is going to uphold themselves to that highest standard and take the responsibility that they're entrusted with seriously. And I think that's what we're here to talk about. To circle back on something you guys were bringing up earlier, I think we're still adjusting as a society to the ramifications of social media. And which is why we're seeing what we're seeing with people jeopardizing their jobs right now. Because I think people still don't really grasp that with social media, if you have a social media account, you are representing everything about your life on there. Even if you use a
right,
fake username, what we have found in the past week and a half is even if you use a fake username, it's real easy for people to find out real fast who you are, where you work, and where you live.
100%. I've
Um, a,
done it
f-
before, man. I've
a
chased
fake
someone down
username
before.
will not hide that.
Right, right.
And I think as a society, people we're still struggling to realize that everything you say has consequences, and that's a
especially
great
in the aviation field.
But why?
yeah.
Why are we struggling with something that's so simple? You know what I mean? I think I have the answer to that. But
Go ahead.
okay, so let me just say this, getting back to the original question, what does it mean to be a person of good moral character? Is I would say not getting away from first principles. The problem with what I just said is first principles are essentially family values, you know? And so it's like you're going, like, kind of trying to tie in the social media thing. If we think about this, right? It's like where are we socialized with our value system? In the families, right? In our families. But we have a problem globally of the breakdown of the traditional family unit, and so you could make a direct throughway to, like, well, if we have a breakdown in the traditional family unit, then we have a lapse in, or we have a breakdown in the establishment of traditional values.
And
You
more
know,
ideological
yeah,
values are
yeah,
fo
and well, what is that? What happens when you have that? Well, it creates a vacuum, and what fills that vacuum? What we have, I mean, think about social media. It's like we're more connected today than we've ever been, but we're really not, right? We're connected, but we're not. Like we're plugged into this matrix like an octopus, but we're not really connected. I had an incident with a cousin of mine a few years back where we walked into a customer service situation, and he's buying something and I'm standing behind him. And he's a young kid and he was on his phone, and my cousin got really angry. He's guys he gets a little bit flashy sometimes, you know. He got really angry, different generations, right? And he got really angry that this kid was playing on his phone or doing something on his phone and was not acknowledging him like as a customer. He got super angry, like wanting to fight the guy angry. And I was like, and I was just kind of watching this whole thing play out, and I was just like, hang on 1 second. When he came up to the counter, he said something to the kid, and the kid finished messaging and then went, huh, what? And like just looking at his expressions, like 20 years ago, that would have been interpreted as like disrespect. It was weird. I was like really like kind of zoned in or honed in on like the kid's body language and like his eye movements and everything. And it dawned upon me like this kid was so like involved on his phone. And it's like, really, if you think about it, man, like social interaction is somewhere between an art and a science. You know what I mean? It's like as you're talking to somebody face to face, we're obviously using words, but we're listening, but we're really watching their body language. We're looking for like the micro expressions of this, the that, you know, that type of stuff. And so I forgot where I was going with this, but I'm sorry, I got lost in in my own tangent. But again, man, just getting back, being a person of good moral character, kind of bringing it back is I guess against all odds, like not getting away from first principles. But again, like, are those first principles even there to begin with? You know, in our broader society with the breakdown of the traditional family unit. I don't want to go off on too many tangents or open too many doors, but I think you understand like what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Again, just to be clear, like I'm not saying that it's not an ideal that we shouldn't shoot for, you know, but yeah, because I mean, it's funny, man. Like when I fly commercially, it's really interesting to listen to like a lot of the flight crews coming off of the planes. In particular, I remember I was in Vegas. I hate Vegas, but it's a separate conversation. But and I mean, these guys are getting off the plane, and the pilots are like, "Oh, let's go grab a drink, man. Let's go get drunk." And the flight attendants are getting off, you know, like one of the flight attendants, you know, he's cracking jokes about going to hook up with some guy. And I'm like, dude, you guys are like walking together as like a group of 4 or 5. And you're just like you have no filter. Like you have a uniform on. I can see what airline you're from. I can see your SIDA badge, everything, you know, and you're just out here just like, wow, you know, like what happened here? You know, I was
Mm.
kind of like shocked by it, you know, just by how crass people were and not just how crass they were, but like how unaware they were. You know, like you said, you know, people don't understand that what they say counts. They're not even attached. I guess what we're talking about, they're not even cognizant of the fact that they're doing these things that are really compromising their careers. There was a story that dropped it was a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, of this one flight attendant. She got her dream job and everything, and she's getting the airplane ready. There's no passengers on board. She sets up her phone and throws a leg up on one of the seats in first class and starts like twerking. Yeah, and I'm like, "What are you thinking? Are you really?
Yep.
What?" It's like, seriously? Like, that's
Mhm.
not cute. That might be cute if you're at a party with some friends, but, I mean, to do something like that and then post it on social media for the world to see because you're probably insecure and you want attention and you wanna look cute, and you don't understand what the ramifications behind that are, you know, and that's exactly what she got fired for, man, was like, "Hey, your behavior does not reflect does not reflect, the values of our company."
Mhm.
And it's like, wow.
Well, that's why
Wow.
you've seen major legacy airlines really crack down on social media, specifically one based in Atlanta. They've completely revamped their social media policy where you can basically, I don't even think you're allowed, and I could be wrong, but it's extremely strict now where I don't even think you're allowed to make videos with your uniform on or something around that relation.
Right.
I follow this woman on TikTok who has been a flight attendant for Delta for 40 years. And she said, yeah, unfortunately, I can't post any videos anymore. In the context I've tried to reach out to the social media people who approve, the PR people, and they've denied it. And she has millions of people following her. Um,
Right.
people posting PDC clearances and all that kind of stuff. And I think this goes back to being morality wise, but these companies cannot take risks on allowing you to choose what you deem as moral or not. They have to set the guideline of this is what X, Y, and Z airlines believes is moral, and it is too much of a risk to let the individual make those decisions for the company.
For sure.
What's going to happen is those people, just like we saw how they got found with hidden usernames and all that, that has those are directly tied to the bottom line for people in terms of these companies.
Mhm.
Millions of dollars was probably lost for no ticket sales for people choosing to fly away from those airlines with the
Right.
pilots that are choosing to act the way they are. And so they have a monetarily based decision to saying, hey, we can't have this be a liable thing.
Right.
So they're cracking down. And so, you know, Scott and I's company sent something out over the weekend saying, hey, remember, this is our social media policy. And I guarantee you every single one of the airlines has done that as well,
Right.
because they do not want to be liable for a very stupid comment and immature and just thoughtless comment being made behind the veil of being an anonymous.
Right. Right.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of all my
Yeah.
thoughts. I
It's
don't know
important. It's important to remember too that your First Amendment rights do not apply between you and your employer.
Right.
So
precisely.
Right.
that's
Right.
something that a lot of people have learned the hard way in the past couple weeks. What you say, if it negatively reflects your employer, they can and will take action against you. So
Right.
that's something to consider.
And
Yeah.
that's why we're careful on this show. Like, I hope we try to be as unbiased as possible and not bring up the things, because we don't want to have our job liable. To be honest with you, we don't want to be caught in the crossfires. So we try to speak at it from the point of, and we've been very precise in how we're trying to frame this.
Right.
People of saying, hey, this is a morality thing, and it's specifically stated within our ATP, the regulations behind that. And that's what we're speaking to, not the actual events of what has occurred,
Right.
because that is different to the actual. It's just given us an opportunity to share. This is an important part of the profession. So
Right.
make it clear for everyone listening that we don't have a bias in this fight. We're just trying to speak from the actual facts that are on the that are being presented in front of you.
And I think also like from I think that coincides also with like the FAA regulatory, or at least the principles behind the FAA regulatory framework, because I've seen, this is my perception of the FAA. Feel free to disagree with me or correct me. But like I've known guys that have lost their licenses, right? Doing stupid stuff, right? Low altitude, high speed passes, just doing illegal stuff, right? And they've either had their licenses revoked or suspended. And, if you read the regs, or even if you've picked up the FAR aim, I mean, it's just like there's a zillion different potholes that you could, or landmines that you could land on. But I mean, really, like from a first principles basis, it's okay. It's very simple. All right. A few things. You spend all this time obtaining this license, this vast amount of like monetary resources and time, and you go out and do something stupid. There's some type of disconnect here in your head, like something's not clicking. When everybody has one of these, right, and everything's on video, it's like you should lose your license, and maybe it didn't come out during the licensing process or this or that, but eventually it's going to come out. It's like, wow, you gave in to your impulsive, selfish whims, and potentially put the general public safety at risk. Yeah, we don't want you in this profession. In fact, we don't want you anywhere near this profession. Go take a seat or full revocation. Revocation. So I don't know, man. I think we could just kind of keep digging in this hole, but I think we're onto a good topic. But anyways,
Can I end my point of view on this? Is
sure.
what I want to leave people with is think about it from three different points of view for how to live up to be a moral person and a pilot. One is, upholding, what does being a moral pilot look like when the parking brake is released?
Right,
One. So when you're actually operating a flight, what does being a moral pilot look like while having the uniform on, whether it be in the airport, coming home at a grocery store, whatever? And what does it look like without the uniform on, in front of your peers, the internet, your family,
right,
and the general public?
right,
That encompasses basically your entire life. And so I encourage you to think about it, because I've really spent some time in the last couple of days thinking about this, of what can I do to be a better person in that sense and uphold this profession in all three of those realms. And I know that we're all really busy people, but this is a pretty big thing in terms of, if you lead a pretty, a moral life and a just life, you're going to be a happy person.
right, right.
And it's not easy, but it's a conscious decision, like we said.
For sure, for sure. Yeah,
Well, that is what I want to leave the subject with. You guys can butt in with whatever you want, but hopefully you guys gained a little bit of knowledge or some wisdom from kind of what we're trying to speak about.
Well, I think the fact that we're speaking about it, man, is huge. You know,
Mm.
it shows that it just shows that we're on the right track. You know, because so far as I know, nobody else is even having these conversations. You know, it's just like, oh, I'm on my phone, I'm posting this, I'm twerking in first class. It's just like, really, okay. So, I mean, I think, you know, I think we're already like not just off to a good start, but like I think we're already grounded pretty well. You know what I mean? So just the fact that we're having the conversation and we're, what am I trying to say? That the topic is in the forefront of our minds and our conscience. So conscience, collective conscience, I guess, with the three of us at least.
I think this applies across the industry because every time, since become a professional pilot, that something's happened in the industry, some kind of incident or something, everybody I've worked with has gone to, let's review what happened. What would we have done differently? How can we change the outcome of that? I think that's just a mindset as a professional aviator that we all have, which is great. And it's great because we all are having these conversations, with the people I've flown with in the past week and a half or so, and everybody, all my friends in the industry who've had, discussions about this. The last thing I'll say, the way I would look at it is, how are you going to act? How do you act when you think nobody's watching you?
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
that's
That's the real person.
that's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
just ponder that, and because that's when you think people aren't watching you, that's how you act. But in modern society, like Vince said, someone's always got a camera, a microphone. Even if you're using a fake username and saying crazy things, you think no one's watching you, but it's very easy for them. If somebody wants to find out who that really is behind that username, they will. And
Yep.
so those are things to consider as you conduct yourself, both in public and in private. Uh,
Yep.
I think that's a good place to wrap up that segment. Guys, that was a great conversation. I appreciate that.
That was
Yeah.
awesome. I think, dude, like we can like cut this, but no one else is saying this at all. Like, not one person in the community is acting
Nope,
on this. I
nope. I'm gonna get
really
it
hope
out this week, yeah, because it needs to be. Yeah,
so. That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really, what in technical terms, what we're talking, what we're sort of circling around is what is it? The Jungian shadow personality type of thing.
Yeah,
You know, yeah. It's like, is your
Mhm.
shadow integrated? Who's really in control? You know,
Mm.
who's really in control? Is it your alter ego? You know, like who are we really as people? Are we who we think we are, or are we really like just a bunch of Pinocchios out there? I don't know if you know the full sort of
You're
breakdown
going
on the
Jordan
Pinocchio.
Peterson now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean but that's who Pinocchio was. He was a concept of the Jungian shadow. You know, he wasn't real. He was controlled by forces that he didn't
yeah,
understand. You know, he was a marionette. So, and again, like if somebody, sorry, I don't mean to keep going back to this example, but like the flight attendant, she had her good job and all this and that, and like threw it all away. So for what? For internet impressions? So you could be cute, so you
Mhm.
could, somewhere in your flight, you could connect to the Wi-Fi and then see that somebody gave you a smiley face. It's like, really? Really? And I mean, why would you even want to present yourself like that in general?
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, we'll move into what's going on, our weekly spirit update. John?
Okay, everyone. So I don't know if you can see me individually or not, but the next topic that we're going to cover is Spirit has already axed flights and asked pilots to take a pay cut. Now it's furloughing 1,800 flight attendants. So, like we said last episode, our hearts and prayers go out to the Spirit crew members and anyone else associated with um, the company as well. Um, Basically, what's going on, I'll read from this in a second, is the company has reached out to the Spirit MEC at ALPA and said that we need to find $100 million of concessions and ratify the deal by October 1st. So
Wow.
that is like they gave them like 12 days to
It's a
do
week from
this.
today. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they have like no time. And so basically um, the highlights are Spirit Airlines will, and we'll go into this in a second. Spirit Airlines will furlough 1,800 flight attendants as it battles with its second bankruptcy this year. 1,800 is about a third of the entire seniority list. Okay,
Wow.
for the company. And they already
Wow.
have, I believe it's either 500 or 800 flight attendants on leave right now for either 6 months to a year. So this is on top of that. So it really gives you perspective on how much they're about to pull back on their flights. The airline announced furloughs starting November 1st, and that's going to be for the pilots, and with involuntary cuts set to begin December 1st, which is, I believe, when the flight attendants are going to be furloughed. Spirit's bankruptcy filing was its second in the 12 months. We've been talking about that forever. Um, and so that's kind of all I wanted to cover from this. So the Spirit Airlines is also pressing for $100 million in pay cuts in September. COO John, I don't know how to, they call him Bendo, told Spirit's 3,000 pilots that the airline must save $100 million from its collective bargaining agreement. Pilots earn between, we already know how much pilots earn. If no deal is reached by October 1st, Spirit has warned it would ask the bankruptcy court to change or reject the contract outright under Section 11 bankruptcy law. Okay, so that's what I want to pull from there. Give me one sec. Let me go back to me. So
Yeah, good luck.
the,
Good luck with asking for pay cuts.
the context that the Spirit pilots are going to be dealing with right now is they're all pissed off at the company for taking these multi-million dollar bonuses of sticking
Mm-hmm.
around.
Mm-hmm.
They're asking for $1 million in concessions. Big slap in the face if you don't ask me. Now,
Yeah, 100%.
I want to give preface to this though. If you are the CEO, COO, any executive level guy, what is your incentive to stay and stick around for on a burning ship? Because if
Right.
that leadership goes away, you have no company. You will fail very quickly. No one will have confidence in your company, and the dominoes will fall very quickly. So I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
be devil's advocate there on why the bonuses are important in terms of a financial mechanism to keep those top leadership around, so that they can try to steer the ship in the correct direction and they're not rudderless completely. Because of that, if that CEO door is continuously vacant, what are they going to do? You can't survive that way. So I want to preface it with that. Secondly, $100 million is a significant amount of money. I've just heard from a buddy over there. They're asking for the direct 401k contribution to be stopped, and
Oh,
then also about 50% pay cut as well. And I don't
what
know how
percent?
true
You
that is.
cut out what percent?
20% pay cut, and the 401k contribution will be gone. And I think the general perspective, again, I'm younger, as you can see, I'm 27. So I have not been around in the industry to see this kind of go down in the last labor negotiations and the cycles that kind of go on. From what I do know from my own research is that as a pilot collective in the CBA, it's much better to protect your work rules versus your pay because your pay
Mm-hmm.
can be reinstated depending on different financial metrics met by the company. That is not the same for work rules. That is much more vague. And if you don't fight to protect those, then those things that they really enjoy over there at Spirit, like the swap and drop, specifically with the drop to zero, I believe it is, and I think they have to have 75% of their days are green to start off the month, meaning that every 3 out of 4 days needs to be able to be droppable in that sense. So that's something a lot of guys like that for their quality of life. So I think they're going to fight really hard to protect those things. But like Scott and I talked about last week, we don't really know what's going on over there if they're going to survive or not.
yeah,
But it seems like they're really trying to survive. I mean, with everything they're trying to do, this is not something you would do if you were going to plan on liquidating. And so, I have a couple buddies at Frontier saying that they just spooled up their hiring significantly. So again, I go back and forth. I don't know. Are they gonna try something again, or are they gonna let them fail and try to grow into what Spirit was? I have no idea. It really sucks. But when you furlough 1/3 of your entire seniority list for flight attendants, and you got the CBA, and you're doing all these other things, I don't know what to make of it. One last thing that we should be getting more information on come next month is October 27th or 28th is the day that basically after 60 days of opening up a bankruptcy Chapter 11 case, the lessors are able to go and bring it to the judge and see if they can get if they don't come to a deal with Spirit on
Mm.
their lease, they can basically ask for the planes back, and they can go and kind of repossess their airplanes
wow.
if the deal or the judge rules in that sense. So I think in the next month, we're really going to find out what's going to happen to the organization of Spirit. So that's kind of all the news right now. But man, 1,800 flight attendants. And I know that they're trying to do something with displacements as well, meaning that with all of the flight attendants, that one third of the list is for movement wise. Think about how many displacements and how much money it's going to cost the company because they have their own CBA, I believe, of the displacement costs of moving somewhere to a different base if those people actually take action on moving their homes to a different base.
Yeah, their domiciles. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's millions of dollars. So I don't really know what that perspective is, but unlike the pilot profession, if you're 2 or 3 year, maybe 4 year Spirit Airlines flight attendant, what do you guys think about at what point do you cut bait and say, you know what, this profession is not for me. I'm not going to be commuting from Las Vegas to Fort Lauderdale to sit short call reserve
Right.
indefinitely with
Right.
$40 an hour. I just I don't know what else opportunities they have out there, but I find it very difficult to believe that is worthwhile. And I think that the amount of attrition is going to significantly increase when people are faced with displacements across the country because, like we talked about last week, Spirit is basically exiting the West. So anyone based in Vegas and all those areas, they're going to be forced into domiciles of Orlando and Fort Lauderdale. And that is, and man, my hearts
Yeah.
go out to them. That is, I did Phoenix to Chicago for a commute for about 6 months. And I've done Phoenix to Minneapolis for a commute. And man, it is difficult to go 3 hours plus on an airplane, multiple time zones to sit short call reserve.
Well,
Hearts
you
go out
just
to them. So that's,
yeah.
yeah,
Can you guys see my screen?
I can.
Okay. And so the next paragraph, I don't know if you had said it in that article you were showing, is not only are they cutting 1/3 of the flight attendants, but they're going to cut 25% of their flying come November 1st, which is
Wow.
that's a massive reduction for any standard. So we're seeing the hemorrhage, we're seeing the not downfall, but the I don't know, collateral damage of their financial position. Another factor to what you were saying, John, about displacements is, these are people who've held pretty high seniority and good trips for a long time, and now they're going to get displaced, like you said, to sit reserve somewhere. And
Across the
but
country.
yes, and it could also be part of the strategy of them wanting to hemorrhage that expense of the crew, right? Because the guys that are not getting furloughed are the more expensive guys, and so they're going to want them to find employment elsewhere to cut their overhead, and that way they can bring the cheaper guys in off of furlough. So from a business decision, I could see why they would do something like that. It doesn't make it any better for anybody going through it. I'm just trying to analyze both sides of it. Yeah, we're looking at, from the time we're recording, we're looking at about a week before things have to really start going down. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens real soon.
What do you think is
John,
going to happen with the vote? Do you think the pilots are going to ratify
oof,
something, or do you think they're going to reject it and let the judge go after it?
that's a tough one, man. I don't currently, we know Connor, but he's on furlough. He hasn't been involved with Spirit in over a year and a half now, I think, since he got furloughed. I don't know. It could go both ways. The majority of guys that are still there are the senior guys, and they tend not to want to take concession. So I wouldn't be surprised if they shoot it down. But they also would probably realize if they didn't take the cut that they don't have a job. So, if these guys think they can find another job, they might shoot it down. If they are worried about that or don't think it, they might accept it. Like we discussed in the last episode, hiring coming back. The majors are all hiring again. So these are all super experienced 121 guys that we're talking about making that decision. So they might say, you know what, I'll just go to one of the big three, put their apps in. I'm sure most of them have some kind of connection at a carrier they wouldn't mind going to. That could affect it as well. It's going to be, I wish I had an idea of which way it would go. It could go both ways. I don't have like a lean on what I think it's gonna do right now.
Yeah. In my opinion, I think it's incredibly difficult for the pilots of Spirit Airlines to be able to, in 12 days, make an insane decision on ratifying $100 million decrease in their compensation package. Usually, these things take months to negotiate. The company said, hey, you have 14 days to figure out what we're going to cut, and you need to do this now, or we're going to the judge. So, whatever. So, I think it's incredibly difficult to go in there in 14 days and whip up something to negate a tremendous amount of their contract. And I think it's unfair to the pilot group to just call on them to do that in such a quick time frame. And so we'll see what happens. Again, our hearts and thoughts, prayers, all of that stuff goes out to those dudes and dudettes over there at Spirit. So we'll have to see what happens. It's an ongoing saga. I think everyone in the industry is rooting for them. Well, some people are not. The other news, I'm going to keep that broad, but we all can see the articles coming out from different airline representatives. I could put it that way. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. And yeah, should we move on to the next topic?
Well, Vince, do you have an opinion on it?
Yeah.
No,
What a
you're good. You
dick.
guys are good. Just a quick. How did they get in this position to begin with?
We got to
There you
watch
go.
our last episode.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
Give him a quick
man.
overview, John.
Basically, it all started after COVID with not only the business model not being transformed to compete against the legacy super broad and basic economy, but also them taking on private money instead of using the CARES Act money. And they leveraged their assets of whether that be their loyalty program and took out all this money against it. Well, those debts were coming due. They had nowhere near as much cash to be able to pay for those. So last October, they had to come out and basically file for bankruptcy due to not being able to meet their financial obligations.
Okay, all right.
During that bankruptcy, they basically kicked the can down the road with just what is it called? Taking some of that debt and turning it into equity from the creditors and the bondholders. So instead of them owing them money, they own a piece of Spirit in that sense.
Okay.
But they never did anything to actually fix the actual problem, right? It's like it's not going to do much.
Yeah, it was almost like a reverse carry trade.
Yeah. So now they're basically in a point where they have maybe $400 million left of free cash, and they took out the last of their collateral, their last $250 million of cash as a revolver, and they're down to like the last. They've maxed everything, and the end is somewhat near if they don't fix anything or if they don't sell off a lot
Yeah,
of.
sounds like they're in between a rock and a hard place. I don't know if I see the pilots. It's a catch-22 at this point in their careers. Like you said, they're experienced guys. They have their ATPs. They have the 121 experience. It's just like they could just be like, "See ya," I'm
Yeah.
out. I'm jumping off this sinking ship and I'm swimming over to the cruise ship over there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, is a pilot concession really going to save Spirit?
No, that's another
the
great
thing,
point. But there is reality to the situation that if we don't do anything, we just turn a blind eye and say, nope, we're not giving an inch. Well, the judge is going to come for your CBA in some regard. And some might say the opposite, actually. And this is a fair point of saying that, hey, well, you're already below the market rate for your compensation and the overall CBA for an Airbus rated pilot. I don't know how that's going to go. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not someone in bankruptcy court. But that's the other side of the equation. And they're going to have to wrestle with that idea saying, what are the odds that the judge sides with the labor? Or are they going to, after the mess up of covering their own butt, of saying, we really want this company to survive. So we're going to go after and make sure and try to get the labor cost down to give them a fighting chance.
right.
I personally think the judge is going to not rip apart the labor contract, but they're going to go through of what the company was looking for and ratify that. That's my own opinion. I'm sure I'm going to get some heated people. And to be honest, it's a completely fair thing. If you're pissed off at what I'm saying, the right to be pissed off because it's your money, it is your future, and I'm from the outside in. So I want to make that clear. But from a non-objective or from an objective view from the outside, that's how my opinion is.
Right.
Fair point, I think.
That's a good point. I think that was all we had on the docket really today.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of good ground. We're going to be trying our best to put out content as much as possible. We are loving doing this, guys, and we really love the support. We're getting emails almost daily now from people that watch the show, and we're really thankful that people are spending the time listening to us. because we try our hardest to be able to put out good content that is meaningful to you. And I think today was probably one of my favorite episodes we've ever done because we talked about something that's really affecting the cultural aspects of us in our industry and us as a civilization.
Right, right.
Vince, I just am so grateful that you came on the show today and gave your different opinions, man. And
Thank you, man. For whatever it's worth, I give my 2 cents.
yeah, and we'll continue to have you on, man. You have such an interesting background. So
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, man. So yeah, maybe I think well, one of these days we'll get to an interview where I'm not an aviator anymore, which is that time's coming pretty quickly. So
wow. Big soon.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So Vince the pilot is going to be no
Hanging up
longer
the hat.
anymore. What's that?
Hanging up the hat.
Yeah. And, and I address like some of these sort of the underlying reasons, just basically a lot of it, well, all of it revolves around, my son and stuff like that. And, I've had this conversation with myself literally on repeat in my head every day for the last like few years, in terms of what my priorities are. At this particular stage in my career, it's like I've sort of ticked off everything in the egotistical boxes. I have nothing else, nothing to prove to anybody, especially myself. I'm college educated. I went to a decent university, graduated top of my class, did my thing in aviation. I'm at like 10,600 hours. I've had an ATP for like 9 years. Like I said, the profession wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and I have like equal responsibility for that. Or I take equal responsibility for that, for a direction I probably should have. I didn't take my career, but probably should have. But no, it's just, my priorities now are my son. And like, I mean, I could literally go out and get a job as like a janitor and sleep out of a van if I had to. So yeah, I have really nothing to prove to anybody except, really that I could be an amazing father or get back on track to being an amazing father for my son.
Yeah. I think that would be actually a really cool episode to break down when it's time to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scott, you want to end the episode for us?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks
Anything else?
again, everybody. Yep. Thanks, Vince, for coming back on, and thanks, John. Thanks everybody for watching. We really appreciate it. Uh, you know, it, if you want to help us out, we don't monetize this. So like, a subscribe, a share, those things all are what help us grow this channel so that we can, get it out to more people. And again, we appreciate all the emails and the direct messages we've been getting. And if you have an idea for a guest, we send it our way. The biggest help you can do when you do send a guest idea is send their contact info if you're not the person. That way we can reach out to who you think we should talk to. And we're gonna, now that the summer's over and kind of life stabilizing more for John and I, will be able to get back on that regular, hopefully a weekly schedule back soon. And you can follow us on the socials. We got autopilotonpodcast at gmail.com. We got a Instagram account, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, X, the website, everything. So thanks again, everybody, and we will catch you on the next one.
All right, good. See you on the next one.